Same effect that Fonseca was having. Absolute rock star. Those words came from Steve Johnson, a 12-year ATP veteran who has seen every kind of star the sport can produce. He was not talking about a Grand Slam champion. He was talking about a 20-year-old from the Philippines who 18 months ago was ranked 140th in the world. Her name is Alex Eala. Hey, and what happened in the weeks leading up to Indian Wells 2026 forced an entire sport to recalibrate who actually moves the needle? Can Eala turn that belief into a deep Indian Wells run, or does the golf gap still need closing before the coronation is complete? Drop your prediction in the comments. Rewind to March 2025. Eala enters Miami as a wildcard, no seeding, no expectations, ranked so low that most casual fans had never heard her name. She beat Madison Keys. Then she beat Iga Swiatek, the most dominant force in women's tennis. She became the first Filipino in history to reach a WTA 1000 semifinal. By year's end, she had climbed to world number 50. She claimed her first WTA 125 title in Guadalajara. She signed as a Nike global ambassador and walked the halls of their Oregon headquarters with portraits of her face lining the walls, portraits that celebrated her heritage, her flag, her people. Then came February 2026, Dubai. She dismantled Jasmine Paolini, seeded 8th in straight sets, 6-1 in the opener, a tie-break to close, a top 8 opponent reduced to chasing shadows. On February 23, the rankings updated Alex Eala, world number 31, the highest any Filipino woman had ever climbed in the 47-year history of the WTA. And then Indian Wells released its draw. Eala seeded 31, first round bye, a projected path that could pit her against Coco Gauff as early as the third round. The experts who had once scrolled past her name were now forced to circle it. The reaction was immediate. YouTube exploded with videos dissecting her rise. Podcasts scrambled to explain how a player they had barely mentioned 12 months ago was now outdrawing the world number 1 in stadium attendance. On the Nothing Major podcast, former top 20 player Steve Johnson made the declaration that set tennis media on fire. He confirmed what the crowds had already proven. Eala was filling seats in ways that even established champions could not match. This was not about potential anymore. This was about a commercial and competitive force that the establishment had failed to see coming. The same experts who had dismissed her Miami run as a fluke were now watching her practice alongside Sabalenka at Indian Wells. Two players on opposite ends of the credibility timeline sharing the same court. The evidence started accumulating in Miami 2025. A wildcard ranked 140th knocked out 2 top 10 players in the same week. That alone would have been a story. But the crowds told a different one. Fans in the stands said they had never seen anything like it. Filipino flags filled sections that had been half empty for other matches. Tournament staff confirmed attendance numbers that exceeded projections. The energy resembled something closer to a concert than a tennis match. See, Monday of that Miami week ranked 140th. By Sunday, a top 100 player with a semi-final finish. The trajectory was not accidental. It was a pattern emerging in real time. That pattern accelerated through the rest of 2025. Guadalajara delivered her first title. The tournament brought more flags, more press, more evidence that something unprecedented was building. Dubai 2026 confirmed it. After beating Paolini, Eala stood on court and asked the crowd a single question. "How many of you have prayed for me?" The roar that followed answered for 115 million Filipinos watching around the world. She's the biggest draw in women's tennis right now in the world. Yes. Steve Johnson, speaking on the Nothing Major podcast days later, put numbers to what the crowds had already demonstrated. He called her the biggest draw in women's tennis. Not a future star, not a player to watch. The biggest draw, present tense. In his exact words, absolute rock star. But she's just like an absolute rock star. When a 12-year tour veteran who has shared locker rooms with the sport's greatest names makes that claim unprompted, the establishment has no choice but to listen. The pattern across Miami, Dubai, and now Indian Wells tells a consistent story. First, the crowds arrive in numbers that surprise organizers. Then the results follow. Then the experts scramble to explain what the fans recognized months earlier. Johnson's matter here. This is a player who won multiple ATP titles across a career that spanned more than a decade at the highest level. He has watched stars rise and fall. He has seen the difference between hype and substance. His assessment was not hedged. He did not say Eala could become the biggest draw. He said she already was. Bigger than Sabalenka, bigger than golf, drawing the kind of standing-room-only crowds that the sport reserves for its rarest talents. That endorsement landed in the same week Eala received her Indian Wells seeding. The timing transformed his words from commentary into prophecy. Nike's decision to feature Eala at their global headquarters signals something larger than one athlete's trajectory. The sport's commercial center of gravity is shifting. For decades, tennis stardom required Grand Slam titles first and fan armies second. Eala is inverting that formula. The fan army arrived before the major trophies. The commercial power preceded the ranking peaks. Tournament directors from Indian Wells to Miami to Roland Garros are tracking the same data. A player who fills stadiums regardless of her seeding represents a different kind of value, one that transcends traditional metrics. Indian Wells marks the first test of this new reality at the sport's highest level. If the crowds match Dubai's intensity, if the results continue climbing, the 2026 season becomes the year the establishment formally acknowledges what Filipino fans have known since Miami. The next chapters write themselves. Indian Wells this week, Miami's return in 3 weeks, the clay court swing through Madrid and Rome. Each event becomes another data point in a story that shows no signs of slowing. The Dubai quarterfinal against golf exposed the remaining distance, 6-0, 6-2, a scoreline that left no room for interpretation. Eala addressed it directly in her post-match press conference. The gap was pretty prominent, she admitted. No deflection, no excuses. Then she added, but I'm on the right path. 14 days later, she arrived at Indian Wells, seeded for the first time at a WTA 1000 event. The path she referenced had already resumed. Miami's wildcard run, Dubai's standing room crowds, Johnson's unequivocal declaration, the Nike portrait celebrating her heritage. The seeding that rewrote Filipino tennis history. And through it all, how many of you have prayed for me? Alex Eala has transformed fan devotion into competitive momentum in ways the sport has rarely witnessed. The experts who once overlooked her now find themselves explaining how they missed the obvious. 115 million Filipinos did not miss it. They recognized greatness before the rankings confirmed it. They packed stadiums before the seedings demanded respect. They believed before belief was safe. Can Eala turn that belief into a deep Indian Wells run, or does the golf gap still need closing before the coronation is complete? Drop your prediction in the comments. If you have been following this story since Miami, you are part of the tribe that saw it first.